This next speaker is a repeat, and we always like to ask speakers what they, a little fun fact about themselves. And his fun fact is he ran out of fun facts. So with that, everyone please welcome Emil.
I'm very happy to be here. This is a talk I've been very excited to talk about. I like to think about this topic as what I do when I'm supposed to do other things. So, and I'm sure some people in here wouldn't want to hear that. So, oh no, wasn't supposed to happen. All right, so while we wait for this to work, I'm going to give some disclaimers. When you spend time working on making your slides prettier for some definition of prettier, it can end up taking all the time you have. So my rule of thumb is I set a predefined time of fixing the aesthetic of a slide, and then when I'm done with that, I don't spend more time on it. So if I had 2 days, I do 1 day of making them pretty, and then 1 day of filling in the content. So then you just use it. And it's the content switching kind of thing. I'm also not trying to pretend like I know anything about how to make things pretty, but I know how to change the aesthetic of slides in Quarto, and that's what I'll show now. I don't try to at all say I know what I'm doing. All right, let's try it then one more time. All right. So I'll be talking about what I like to call slide crafting, which is doing fun things with slides. All right, so before we need to talk about what is Quarto. So Quarto is this new open source scientific and technical publishing system built in Pandas. It is this new thing from Posit. I think last year we announced it. And everybody here, I assume, know or have heard about R Markdown. And Quarto is, I like to think of the technical, like the spiritual successor to R Markdown, except that now it works independent from R, so you also have support for Python, Julia, observable, and it has room to improve later. It's built on Pandas, Lua, so you don't need R installed anymore. But if you want to, you can use it with R. And yeah, it's many, many years of R Markdown development has been distilled into Quarto. So they learned from their mistakes, and now everything fits more uniformly into one package. And it works the way you would expect. So here we have you can use it with Jupyter notebooks to do Python things. You can use it how you would R Markdown. It's a little bit different syntax-wise, but it's mostly the same. You can also use Julia or observable. So, and I assume that other scripting languages will get support in the future. So if you're already familiar with R Markdown, I won't talk about it. Dan will talk a little bit about Quarto, so I won't go into any of the details. What I will talk about is one of the formats that come out of Quarto is this reveal.js. So this is a framework of creating presentations, making slides that are HTML slides. And these types of slides are reminiscent of the Syringian, remark.js slides that we used to make. There's some subtle differences on syntax and how actually everything works, but it's the same idea. You create basically a website, and this is what I'm using right now. So it looks like how we have up here. We have on the left, we have, left we have a Quarto document, which is a glorified Markdown document. So we have a YAML at the top with some information, and then we do headers to differentiate the slide. So level 2 header, which is 2 hashtags, is a new slide. 1 is a section, so I tend to use the 2. So we have a title, and then each slide just works how you would expect with Markdown. So bullet, you can do the little you can bold things how you expect them to bold. You can create a list the same way you do too, and how we expect from R Markdown. If you add code chunks, the code will be evaluated and be posted into the slides right away. So that's everything I'll be talking about how reveal.js works. In Quarto, just the basics. They have a great intro page of all the functionality. And I'm just going to point out some of the things that I kind of need and some of the things that aren't documented. So we have columns. So we have these, they are like fenced diffs. So when you add these like triple colons, they create a div in HTML. And if you add like a thing after it, like here's its columns, so that will get a class columns. And then you can nest them how you want. So here we have a big old div called columns, and then inside that we have two divs, each with the class column, and they have their width set to 50%, so you get 50-50 columns. And you can do whatever, this is flexible. You can add 4 columns that all has widths that add up to 100, or less than 100, then you have spaces and stuff. You can add images like absolute. So you put in an image like how you normally would, and then add the class absolute, and then with like top, left, right, all those things and sizes, you can precisely put in an image where you want it to be. You don't have to try to make things work. One thing that isn't documented at all is if you div a whole slide the class center, it will center the content vertically, which is normally that's super hard to do, but they have like this little thing that just centers it vertically. And it's really like, I think it's neat, it's hard to use otherwise. And then another thing is if you just want the biggest text possible, you use the class r-fit-text, and it will just make it as big as it can within the container. So that is also a very fast way to just make slides just all like fit text everywhere, and you get like nice big slides. All right, so that's just like the basics, a little bit of how to do different things. There's a lot more information on the website. So the first thing when I want to like change the state of my slides is I want to deal with like colors and fonts. And I'm quite basic, so I end up on Pinterest, and you can just search color palettes, and a bunch of things come up, and it's all like different. You can search like beach theme, and it's all beach pictures with like little palettes on them. But you can like find your colors everywhere. You might have some inspiration, you have some pictures, you have something that inspires you. You use the eyedropper tool and pick out a certain number of colors. You don't necessarily want to go like too overboard, and you need, like I feel like you need 2 to at most 5 colors. So you need a background color, you need a text color, and then you have a color of accents. You also need to make sure that these colors work well together. So you need to make sure that your background and that your text is visible when people don't have your computer right there. So you just search like color contrast checker, you can put in some colors, and it will tell you how legible is the text. And annoyingly, it also depends on font size. So you can't just use the best number. You need to also learn, is this going to be like body text or like titles? And then with fonts, you can use any type of font you want. I end up using doodle fonts a lot because you just use the little import statement, and I'll show how to do that later. But you can also use local, like local files as fonts. If you have a really fancy font or a homemade font, I have a blog post that is linked at the end showing you how to use any font at all. So you can like do really fun things. So just finding fonts, also just doodle fonts, like good fonts work together. Like I end up stealing other people's fonts because I don't know enough about picking good ones. All right, so these basic characteristics of how your slide works are governed by these things called SAS variables. And I'll show how to set them in a moment, but at the documentation, with the little link at the bottom of the slide, we have these variable names, and they're fairly like intuitive names. We have like a background color and a body color, and like the font families of like presentations and other things. So you find what you want to change, and then you set that variable. So we're showing that right here. So add in your Markdown file, you specify in the YAML saying, hey, I want to add some CSS. And here we're technically using like a SCSS. So it's like a supercharged SCSS that allows us to do logit and like more easily variable passing. And then, so we have, and then our style slide will look like this. So here is the input statement that came in that we downloaded from Doodle. And then we just say, hey, I want the font family of the sans serifs, description text. We want the presentation size, like the text size of everything to be fairly big, because otherwise you can't read it. And it needs to be, it's bigger than you think. Like you can't do 20. You need to do like a fairly big number. And it will depend on your font you choose. And we can say, oh, I also want to change the link color. So that is, so you also want to change the link color. And some of these variables are used throughout. So you could say, and it does it already, like you have the link color, and you can reuse this link color over here, and we want to make it 25% lighter. So there is this like hierarchy of light. So you can specify everything at the top, and everything just like flows through. So you see now it looks like we take a different font. The link colors is different. See the link colors, and we can also let's say, oh, if we change the background color, we now have a new background color of everything. All right. So the way I end up doing all my slides is at the very top of my CSS file. I create a bunch of variables, and I'll all theme, and then a color name. And then I just pick the colors I'm using, and then I can use those color names later. So each color or name is only really going to be used once, because if I decide this blue isn't really like giving what I need, you can change it once and everything flows through. And maybe there's some slides here where you can then let everything work. What I also do with my colors is I create these custom CSS classes. So at the very bottom, you see it has .blue, and the color is my theme blue. And I can use that in like my slides. So like, if I want to do some highlighting that's other than bolding and making things italics, I can just say, hey, make this word blue, or make this area teal, and it works. And this isn't necessarily, you can also make these custom classes to make things bold. You can make things specific font like style if you want to have like a wavy font to like show something as starry or something. You can have like a starry tag, and it just like you can use it. This becomes very manual over time, and what I do if I really feel like I want to do something kind of neat is I spend my time in my CSS, and I write these like themes that are like slide specific. So I'm saying on this slide, I want the background to be this. I want it to have these font colors. I want to have these font sizes. If you used Sovereignty, there's that inverse theme where you just put inverse, and then instead of being white with black text, it's black with white text. But you can let it span that however you want. So a little bit how in PowerPoint you have like a template where you say, oh, I want to now add a thing that has like text on one side and image on the other side. That's what I'm doing here in CSS. So then when I'm writing my slides, I don't really use much theming when I write the slides. I just add the theme type I want for each set of slide. So you get like slides that look like this. So now, like, it just knows everything. That this is the background is just the SVG that has a little animation in it. But you can also say like here, like there's a big old globe on the right-hand side, and the CSS knows that and is restricting the area where the text will happen. So you don't have to do it manually every time. You set everything up front, and then you just write your slides real fast. And a lot of these can also be made to like be reshared. So like you create it once, you create your corporate slide that has all the colors you need. It has like a different like type of slide. You write it once, and then you use that every time moving forward. All right. Another thing, this is going to be hard for me. So another thing that I don't like about real slides is the way the content is. So the background just goes fills the screen no matter the size of the screen. So if you put in an image in the background and your presentation dimensions is different than your computer dimensions, it might overlap with text because the background isn't absolute. It's based on the dimensions of the slide. So I wrote this Quarto extension. So this is like it's basically reveal.js slides, but they behave how like syringe and dead, where like the slide content is always fixed in space, and then it just adds like a background color on the side. And this makes it like really easy to do something where you want an image that always takes up half. So here, like the text will always be like the same compared to the images. That is not something you can do in normal reveal.js slides because of the way positioning everything works. One thing to add a little bit of like pizzazz to your slides is this thing called fragments. So this you're specifying what needs to happen, and these fragments happen one by one. So you say, here's a fragment, it defaults to like fading in. So when we go forward, the text that says fade in, fades in. Then the next one will be the next sort of thing. It says fade out, it will fade out. And the things that says highlight red will highlight red. But we can also create our own fragments. So it comes from like 20 different ones, but we might want to do something a little bit more fun. So this is like the template of how it works. So you just copy this in and change the blue part to the name of what you want to call your fragment. And then you fill in the blanks. So here, in this specific one, I want to say it needs to just look normal to begin with, but then when it becomes visible, it needs to have a background color of orange. So this means that when you have a new slide that you can do like you're highlighting, which I feel like this is more highlighting than like changing the color. So we have like, oh, we're highlighting things. It's a little bit neat. Where things become a little bit more fun, I think, is this is just an HTML page that does some fancy things. And right now in this page, it has a JavaScript object that is like what the slides are. So this like reveal object has a lot of information about the slide and is used to modify it. So if I go into the console and press reveal.left, it will go back a slide. Or I can like go forward a slide, I can deadline how far I am on my slides, and find out all this information about the slide, or like do things about it. I can shuffle the slides, which is kind of fun. What it has is these event listeners. So every time, like the first one, every code that is inside this like parenthesis that says slide changed is run every time a slide is changed. Or you can run some arbitrary JavaScript code every time the window is resized. So if there's some things you can't do, if you know enough JavaScript, you can do anything you want as a trigger whenever a slide is changed. What I found that what I want to spend time moving forward working on is this idea of fragment shown and fragment hidden. So every time a fragment is shown, you can also call arbitrary JavaScript code. So, and that's actually what I've been doing to do whenever I press forward, the embedded slide that moves forward. So I added an advanced slide fragment, and every time it goes forward, it uses some JavaScript to find the iframe and advance it. And it also works backwards, so also have it like, moving backwards. So when I hide it, so if I go back and forth, the slides inside work with me. And you can do more fun things with this. So this is like maybe not it's a way of like hiding things, but you can add like trigger custom animations in like JavaScript. So like when you click something unfolds. Like you can do a lot of things you can change. Things that you might not be able to do in with CSS, you cannot do with JavaScript. So this is where life becomes really hard for someone like me because I have a real job and I can't spend my time just writing slides all the time. All right. So this is how, this is basically how it looked when I did the thing. I put in my iframe, and then I just add these advanced slides underneath. And then I go forward, and that's how we advance everything. All right, and that's all I have. I wrote a very stagnant blog post series where I try to condense some of these points, and I'm trying to add more. So if you're interested, find me. I'm Emil Hvitfeldt everywhere, so I'm easy to find.